How does a man rise from a tiny pearl business become influential in the whole Gulf? Wealth and power. Ibrahim Alfardan have it both. He changed how business was being done in the country. He started the second largest bank in Qatar. He directs the country's most profitable companies. And to some points, most companies partly depends on the actions of this man. Ibrahim Alfardan is an incredible dreamer than we ordinarily dare to imagine. His presence in a single meeting, he can save an entire company from collapse and bankruptcy. His story, it's very inspiring. So fairly enough, the least I can do is telling you the truth. And this is the story of Ibrahim Alfardan. Let's go back to 1933 when Alfardan was born. He was born and raised into a pearl business family. Ibrahim's father, Hussein Alfardan, was a well-known pearl businessman in the Arabian Gulf. So he ensured his son got the best education. And when he was 18 years old, in 1952, Alfardan was ready to enter into the workforce. He secured his first job in the British bank, which nowadays is called Standard Chartered Bank. The working environment of the bank during those days were terrible but hallowed, as it was in an old, ancient building, but later on, the government built a structure and rented it to the bank. He worked along 5 people who were running the activities of the small bank that the market really needed. Through those times, the business was limited, Doha was very small, with small population, so they lived close and trusted one another. Indeed, life was simple, with no pressure and stress. While he was working in the bank, he had a small shop that was importing and exporting from Qatar. However, his good relationships with other people enabled him to get contacts and connections. So he imported items directly and under commission. As an example, with a bag of rice or wheat or a carton of milk, for each one during arrival, he took 1 rupee commission, as he could sell them at a cost plus 1 rupee. The rupee was preferred during those days. There were no reals. Alfardan is a big dreamer. After a short while, he minded of diverging his business and he started selling gold and pearl. He opened a jewelry shop and put someone in charge of it. In 1958, Alfardan was already a rich person. Just 4 years after the beginning of his business, believe me, it was not luck. It's because he knew something that most of us here don't know. And this leads us to part 2. Alfardan realized there was no way for him to become wealthy if he continued working in the bank. Indeed, no billionaire made it through salary. A job won't make you wealth. And this is part of what Alfardan discovered earlier in his life. And so he took the risk and made the decision. And the decision he made is what made him who he is today. You see, Alfardan was really interested to perpetual growth, for he believes in the sequence of probability rather than luck. He was hyper-determined and focused, and so he resigned his job at the bank after acquiring knowledge how truly money works. However, among the experience he got from the bank, he discovered one thing: the rich gets even more richer by working together to ensure it. But the poor despise others and they don't collaborate. And this is when all you see today, the fancy building and other properties under his name, began to happen. His personal philosophy that relationships are important to any business. As a matter of fact, if you want to go far, find the right people and go together. But if you want to go fast, just go alone, but expect to stumble ahead. The government established the Qatar National Bank. Alfardan, as a businessman, saw an opportunity and he started a small exchanging house in 1977 and named it his name, Alfardan Exchange, where it was selling all currencies just like a bank. And later on, it became the biggest among many in Qatar during that time. After Qatar getting independence, Alfardan was convinced that his newly independent nation required a private bank of its own to advance business and encourage traders. So he went forth, studied how he could form a bank, the laws required, and the plan to follow. He then contacted his most trustworthy friends, discussed the idea, and that's how Commercial Bank of Qatar was established. Later on, they realized they needed a government license to run the bank, and so they approached the department concerned. Though it was not easy, because those days there were no government policies on matters concerning private banks. It took Alfardan and his friends 2 years to acquire a license, and on a cool Thursday, April 10th, 1975, in a small 2-story building off the old Arab Bank roundabout, nowadays Commercial Bank, started its operation. However, there was a problem: who to run the daily operations of the bank and how to run it. Since it was the first one of its kind, Fardan tried to look around, but he could not find a reliable person to trust with the bank. But later on, he managed to persuade his loyal friend Alan Mikel, who had mastered to speak Arabic fluently. He served as the first general manager of Commercial Bank under Chase Manhattan, led by the grandson of John D. Rockefeller, David Rockefeller. Both Commercial and Chase got into an agreement where the Rockefellers provided training and general managers, likes of the American Donald Hayek, who succeeded Mikel. See, Rockefellers had a good relationship with the Qataris. He had to visit Qatar in his private jet, where he met His Highness the Emir and the bank itself. At this moment, Alfardan had a great time with his friend, where they discussed a lot of issues, and Chase Manhattan allowed the Commercial Bank of Qatar to run operations their own, but remaining treating them as one of their branches. This was a good win for Commercial Bank indeed. Their relationship was extremely good. Furthermore, relationships are not gifts, they are investments, and the parties involved commit to maintain them. And this leads us to our next chapter. On one way or the other, you might have seen the word Fardan in either Doha, Lusail, Dubai, Oman, Istanbul, and many other places. You might have asked yourself, truly, what business is Alfardan in? Here is the fact: Alfardan is not a one business line. They are diversified in different fields of operations. Alfardan's secret is creating a business system where he turned all small multiple companies to a big conglomerate. He owns many business brands than you can imagine. Not automotive, hospitality, bank, real estate, jewelry, exchange, properties, and many more other that we cannot finish by now. Let's see how all these companies began. One day, as he was sitting next to the seashore, watching the sea, he recalled his young age. Well, a boy when Saddam Hussein was invading Kuwait. It was difficult and unhappy experience. He remembered how he used to dive into the sea, having fun and finding oysters. This idea became a business in his mind. He imagined tourists at large numbers coming to Qatar to enjoy the sea life. So he began to think how to attract millionaires to come and spend their millions, not peanuts. So he started investing in hotels, properties, and real estate under the Alfardan Properties, controlling the world-class high-end residentials and commercial properties. Of course, this way of business made him even more wealthier. The launching of Al Ghazal Resort in 2012 was a significant milestone for the family group. The resort features a range of amenities, including private beach, spa, and 5-star restaurants like the Mexicans Bodega Negra Restaurants Doha, Italian Scalini Restaurant Doha, Chinese Hakkasan Restaurant Doha, Turkish Restaurant Hakka, Spanish Restaurant Bibo, The Terrace, Riyasat, The Market, among many other like St. Regis Hotel. They did not stop there. The group kept acquiring more business. Further in automotive industry, they ran a BMW, Rolls-Royce, Jaguar, Land Rover, Ferrari, Maserati, Fiat, and many more other luxurious brands showrooms. However, the business has been able to pass from one generation to the other. Until today, it has survived the third generation. You see, it's no longer guesswork. This is mastery that even the children who are born are being taught the principles and system, so they continue the history of this private, family-owned conglomerate. You see, when you study the wealthy, you will realize they have one thing in common. Thing is giving charities. So Alfardan is not left behind. He's a well-known philanthropist, and as a support to the government Vision 2030, he made a major investment in healthcare sector, partnering with Northwest Medicine from Chicago, USA, that leads in academia on health systems, anchored by Northwest Memorial Hospital, one of the top-ranked hospitals in US. Omar Hussein Alfardan, the president and CEO of Alfardan Group, has an ambition in enhancing medical system in the region. If Alfardan managed to rise from selling pearls to power and influence, the story teaches us with focus, consistency, faith, and persistency, 99% of us all can also do it. The secret is learn the principles that makes for wealth, and patiently, with passion and love, persevere through the pathway to gain mastery, because it takes more than guesswork to rise. There's one thing for sure: you can't be a blessing in ignorance. This is not an easy road, and I assure you, not all of us can make it till the end. But make a decision. Instead of hurting and hating the wealthy, calling them all kinds of names, and having all kinds of assumptions and myths towards money, one thing you should know: money game is a rigged game. The richer will forever be rich because they understand how the system works, and the poor will remain be poor because they don't understand. My prayer for you: I love you, so it's my responsibility to tell you, please learn the other side of the coin. Learn the system and find a way beyond the winning side. Instead of sitting crying for them to change the system, it cannot change. It started many years ago. We are born in the middle of the crisis that we don't know anything about. So don't expect the system to change any soon. Work hard, be passionate, keep going. Thank you for watching till the end, and if this video has given you value, hit the subscribe button and then watch our next video. Learn how the system works. See you there. It's all love, inshallah.
Savoir tout fait tout dit, qu'on réalise que le bonheur est dans des choses bien plus subtiles. De bon augure comme un salam ou un sou.